All right. So we'll come into our seated position. Take your dominant cross-legged position. And then just take a moment to spread out between the sitting bones to move the flesh of the outer hips kind of out and the inner thighs down. And then pressing down somewhere to help your shoulders adjust to align with your hips. To bring your shoulder blades into your chest. And really inviting your legs to settle. See if you can even sense the weight of the thigh bones. Plugging the sitting bones deep into the floor, tailbone, just feeling that three-pronged connection you're making with the earth. Balancing on top of that. And without disturbing what you've already established in your seated pose, join your hands together in front of your heart. Close your eyes, look away from the brain. Begin to tune in to that radio station of what is true for you right now. Observing the breath, sensing the body, sensing the busyness of the mind, lightness or heaviness upon the heart. Maybe inviting some sort of context into your practice today, an intention, a wish. Taking some time to arrive in a more present state of mind. And we really do use the practice of yoga, of asana, kind of like giving a dog a bone. It's giving ourselves something to do so that we can remain occupied, so that we can remain present. So presence is really the ultimate goal. If you already have good presence, you can get up and leave right now. But for most of us, we need to do this practice to cultivate a bit more presence. So we're going to bow toward the heart. Release your hands, and as you're ready, lift your head, let your eyes gently blink open. Once the eyes are open, just reminding yourself to really keep attention turned inward. Welcome. So before we get going, I just wanted to say something about backbends. Actually, you can begin to set up for your hero pose as I talk. Backbends were never taught in the Iyengar system until someone was truly master of the standing, of the forward bends, of the inversions, of all the other categories, basically, because he considered backbends to not really be able to be judged, and so he didn't feel it was safe to teach them, because the only person that can judge a backbend is the practitioner themselves. So what is required in backbend is real discernment, and only that can come from you. So that being said, you just want to move with great care and attention in your backbends. You can't be an exhibitionist in your backbends. You can be, but we're trying not to be. We're trying to be very discerning and safe and present. So you're going to set up for hero pose with some support under your sitting bones if you don't have that directly to the floor, and then make the adjustments to the flesh of the legs. So you're rolling the calf muscle out, you're kind of inviting the under thigh in. You'll see your kneecaps looking forward. That's a really good sign that you are aligning. You can also look back. Your toes should be pointing straight back, and your feet should be heels outside of hips. And once you're there, just begin by pressing down into the soles of the feet and adjusting the shoulders back, moving the tailbone in and taking the shoulder blades into the chest. Adjust your skull if you sense that you're kind of throwing the head forward. And if you need more support in this pose, you can always put something bigger between your butt and your feet, like a bolster or a stack of blankets. You can also kind of sandwich a blanket between your thighs and calf muscles. So once you've pressed down on the feet and adjusted your shoulders back, take your hands in front of you and interlock your hands. Go to your familiar interlock. Come in tight to the finger webbing. And then press your palms out. Interlocking the hands, press the palms out. Take the arms up. And we tend to fall a little short with the thumbs. The thumbs tend to kind of collapse down. Really press up through the thumbs. Fully extend the arms. And any amount that you can take the arms back, you'll feel the shoulder blades as a result push forward gently, which we want. Now watch that your tailbone doesn't start to fly back. Watch that your low back doesn't start to shorten. And watch that your skull doesn't float forward. Good. Now go to the alternate interlock of your hands. You'll have to bring them down, rotate the wrist. Go to the less favored interlock of the hands, pressing the palms out, and then taking the arms up. So I called this week practice re-inhabiting the front body. Like last week when we talked about forward bends, we were talking about inhabiting the back body. The back bends are really about opening the front body. That's the only way we can go into those deep back bends. Just a few more breaths here. And now release your arms. Bring your hands behind you and just angle back with your torso. Roll your shoulders back, look up toward the ceiling. Just a little kind of a mini reclining hero pose. We're not going to do the full reclining hero pose today, just a mini one. Good. And now bring yourself up, leading with your breastbone. And you're going to find your way to downward dog to relieve your legs. So don't do it on your blanket because you'll slide. If you had a blanket down through your shins, just kind of throw that out of the way. And find your way into downward dog. Really open the backs of your knees. Try to roll the inner knees back. Try to squeeze your thigh muscles so your kneecaps really engage in toward the thighs. And try to compress the outer knees in toward midline. Lifting your hips away from your wrists so that the rib cage doesn't kind of telescope together. Keep space open between the side ribs. And now lower your knees. We'll come into Anatasana to open the chest a bit more. This is heart chakra pose. So from the knee beneath hip position, keep your thigh bones vertical. This isn't child's pose where you're sitting back on your heels. So keep your thigh bones vertical. You're going to cross your right arm in front of your, kind of right under your forehead. Extend your left arm forward and place your forehead on your right forearm. And for 5 or so breaths, just dropping the shoulder blades toward the chest. Using gravity to our advantage to help the chest bloom open. The chest gets really collapsed in winter time and over the years as we age. So just letting gravity help you re-invite that openness across your chest. You're going to switch out your forearm. So take your left forearm now to be the resting point for your forehead. The right arm can extend forward. And 5 or more breaths here, just kind of sinking the shoulder blades toward the floor. And now go ahead and lift your forehead. You're going to come through downward facing dog to come to standing. Walking the feet in toward the wrists. And then take hold of your hips and come up. Step your feet into mountain pose, join your legs and feet. Roll the shoulders back so that your shoulders are in line with your hips. You should sense that your hands kind of land by the outer hip bone. That's a good sign that you're aligning. A lot of times we're kind of not doing that. So roll your shoulders back. Imagine your shoulder blades moving into your back pockets. If you had some, maybe you do. Take your tailbone into your front body. And then imagine the backs of your thighs absorbing the fronts of your thighs. With the skull right above the spine, as if your spine was a post moving up through the core of the skull. Drop your shoulders. Imagine someone standing behind you and putting their hands on your shoulders and pressing down. And if you have the alignment right here, the pressure on your shoulders reinforces the upward energy of your spine. Maybe you can imagine that. In other words, the pressure of the imaginary person's hands on your shoulders would not make you feel compressed. It would only reinforce the dynamic action of this mountain pose. Okay, so let your eyes open. We're going to come into crescent poses, side to side, and then back bend. So take the arms up and just find your straightest arms. Try to align the biceps with your ears or even back behind the ears. And then join your hands. And sometimes I lock my thumbs together to keep my hands closer, to keep my arms straighter. So feel free to lock your thumbs together. Inhale here. Exhale, you're going to shift to the left, opening the right side body. Try to keep your feet really evenly balanced. So we have to pay special attention to the right foot staying just as heavy as the left foot. Inhale to center. Exhale, hands to your heart. When your hands pass your eyes, close them. And let your thumbs rest against your breastbone. Kind of push up or scrub up on the breastbone with the base of the thumbs. And imagine the flesh of your shoulders moving up your chest and then over and down the back body. So you're using your hands to kind of move the flesh of the chest up and over and down the back. Second side. Inhale, raise the arms. Fully extend your arms. You should maybe have some pressure of your arms against the side of your head. That's a good sign. Big breath in. Exhale, extending to the right, opening the left side body. Continue to create balance between the feet. And not collapsing right side body to open left side body. Can you find a way to feel spacious on your right side body? Next inhale brings you back up. Exhale, hands to the heart. Pressing up on the breastbone, roll the shoulders back. And every in-breath, just bringing the sternum into the thumbs. Good. So before we come into the arms raised version of the back bend, we're going to do a clasping hand position behind the back. So separate your feet. It's always a good idea for back bends to have a little more distance between the feet, not only for the legs to stay in alignment and for you to keep your balance, but also to keep the lower back broad. So your feet are hip distance. We're going to clasp our hands behind our backs. Roll your shoulders back and then pull your arms toward the floor. So your arms are perfectly straight and your palms are open like you're holding something wide in them, like a brick. Shoot your breastbone away from your hands. Take an in-breath, and on your exhale, the hands move down toward the floor. The breastbone reaches up. You don't let your head fall back. Let your eyes look up. And rather than jamming your shoulder blades together, curl them in toward the front body. So the inner tips are more forward than the outer tips. Roll your inner thighs back. Squeeze your legs. Keep the butt soft. Good. Inhale, come up. Release your hands. Shake out your arms if you need to. And now keeping your feet wide, we'll go into the back bend version of crescent with the arms up. So you can lock the thumbs if you need that, if you need a little more power. Fully extend the arms. It's a cleaner line of energy. Press into the feet, ground the feet, inhale, come up through the fingertips, exhale, extend back. Roll the inner thighs back, keep the buttocks soft. Don't let your temples harden, don't let your eyebrows raise. Only you can tell if this is right. Inhale up, and exhale, release your arms. Join your legs and feet. Realign yourself in mountain pose, close your eyes. Just drop into breath, drop into deep, focused attention. And just notice what landed for you, maybe what disrupted you. This is how we learn. Yoga is experiential. And from there, open your eyes. So one more standing back bend. We're going to do warrior one. So we're going to jump out. You can step out if you need to. So try not to gain a lot of vertical height as you spread the feet. Take hold of your hips. Turn the right toes out 90 degrees. Sweep in with the left foot. You might even need to step it up and reset it down. You might need to open the distance between the feet. Rotate your hips like a steering wheel so that your hips align evenly, headlights on your hip crests, and straighten both legs. Clamp your elbows in together, move the shoulder blades in toward the chest, and really pay attention to the back leg here. The back leg needs to open. This is front body opening. Re-inhabit the front of your back leg. Move your tailbone in. Adjust your feet. They might feel distorted or kind of like you're rolling to the outer front foot and the inner back foot. So readjust, rebalance your feet. And then raise the arms. We always build our poses from the ground up. Lock the hands together again, just like you did for Crescent. Shoot the breastbone up. Take a big inhale. And on your exhale, take the right knee above the right ankle without distorting the trunk. Keep compacting the back leg front to back. Yawning open the left hip flexor. Curling the tailbone in toward the front body. And then really try to move the arms back in space to help you get that really bright, open chest. Your gaze should be slightly lifted. Inhale to straighten the leg. And then open wide. And then jump or step back in. Because warrior one is a very challenging, demanding pose, you're going to take a mountain pose here. Just drop in, drop the shoulders, settle. Watch the breath. Notice any residuals. And then as you feel ready, you'll prepare for side two, jumping or stepping out. Big spread between the feet. Take the hips, turning left toes out 90, the kneecap follows, stepping in with the right foot and squaring the hips. So there is a tendency to kind of pour out the front of the pelvic bowl here. So scooping pelvic tilt, tip the front rim up, drop the tailbone, curl it in, compress the back leg front to back. Then raise the arms. Lock the thumbs, move the arms back, come to the top of an in-breath, exhale without the torso tilting, come into warrior one. Soften at the temples, soften your forehead, unhinge your jaw. Fill yourself with a global awareness, your attention throughout the body. Using the body as a vehicle for presence. Pushing into the left foot to straighten, turning wide to open, jumping or stepping back in, and restoring Tadasana. And now we're going to come into a series of lunges. So I'm going to have you put a blanket down. For kneeling, so you don't need a lot of thickness, it's just to create some comfort for the knees. And then you'll use your blocks. And we'll begin with the right foot stepping forward and the left knee kneeling. So the alignment is you're going to have a vertical right shin and a vertical left thigh bone. And then we'll adjust that in a moment. So that's the starting point. So once you have that vertical right shin, vertical left thigh bone, lean forward, grab your blocks, curl your left toes under, extend your leg fully, left leg. And then imagine your knee, your left knee, try to lower the knee onto its present shadow. So take it straight down. So we've just moved the knee back without dragging on the kneecap. Now let the top left foot come back to the floor, and now come back to your upright torso. Holding the hips in your hand, move the tailbone forward, lift the chest, lift the gaze slightly. We know the gaze is very suggestive to the spine. Keep clamping the elbows slightly in. And every time you exhale, sinking a little bit more forward. Re-inhabiting the front left thigh. So imagine we're building an arc. The arc begins at the left knee. Now extend your left arm up alongside the ear, the biceps, and reach out through the fingertips and just visualize in your mind's eye this sweeping arc from your left knee all the way out through your left fingertips. Four more breaths. Good. Now inhale and extend forward and move both blocks inside the right foot. Turn your right toes out 45 degrees. And then you're going to place your forearms on your blocks. And if that doesn't work, just use your hands instead. So now we get a little bit of an opener to the front thigh, but we don't have to hold that back bend, but you're still getting a nice way to open the front left thigh. Try to keep the weight in the forearms or hands equal. And you've turned the right toes out, so it's kind of safe that the knee might be floating out. So you can just let your knee be a little bit passive on the right side. We're going to stay for just a few more exhales, really kind of bringing attention to the front left thigh. We'll just add a little bit to this. We'll turn the dial up just a notch just by adding a little bit of a rotation, corkscrew the spine. So you can come onto your hands on the blocks if your forearms are down right now. Take your right hand onto your right knee and then push that right knee way out to the side. You could uproot the inner right foot if you want to. Try to come off of the left shoulder so you're extending your spine, you're winding your spine to the right, and you should be able to kind of feel or sense the front left thigh a little bit more intensely. Good, so make sure you're not taking a nap on the left shoulder. Put enough pressure in that hand that you're able to grow some space between your ear and your shoulder. And now to come out of this, you're going to kind of turn back to face the short end of the mat. Curl your left toes under and walk yourself over to the left edge of the mat. Not sure if it's right or left. I've lost track. I think it's left. And you're going to come into wide fold. So line up your big toes if they're not on the same line. Let the head sink toward the floor. We're just coming into a neutralizing wide fold to offset some of the up regulation of our back bends. And then you can just kind of creep back around to face where those blocks were. Lower the knee, bring your right knee onto the blanket as well, and take a few moments in child's pose, either extending your arms or propping the forehead with your hands or fists. And then as ready, you can set up for second side. We'll this time be stepping the left foot forward. The right knee is kneeling. And we'll start with those 90-degree angles to begin before we find that deeper extension of the right front thigh. So once you're stacking hip above right knee and then left knee above left ankle, then you're going to lean forward and grab your blocks. Curl your right toes under, extend the leg completely. And then imagine the kneecap having a shadow. Try to place it directly down where that shadow would be. Take the top foot back to the floor and bring yourself back upright. Hands on your hips. If you're feeling unstable here, you can sweep your right shin at an angle across your mat. It does give you a little bit more of a sense of stability. Otherwise, keep the ankle in line with the knee. So every time you exhale, you're just going to kind of lean forward, but not tipping the torso forward. So the idea that you have a book on your head, it wouldn't go anywhere. You're keeping your torso very upright. Keep clamping the elbows because they want to be wide, which of course shortens and dulls the chest and shoulders. So clamp the elbows to keep your chest broad, your shoulders broad, your chest lifted. Make sure your head isn't 10 feet in front of your spine. Make sure your eyes aren't bulging out of their sockets. Your tension is inside. Nothing to see here, not an exhibitionist pose. It's all being felt and experienced, and you're the discerning one. And no teacher can really judge your back bend, so it has to be judged by you. And now we'll go into that deep version where we sit forward on the blocks. The blocks are inside the left foot. You might need to stay on hands, otherwise we're going to the forearms, elbows under shoulders. Turn your left toes out 45 degrees, which gives us a little bit more room in the pose. And try to suspend the front right thigh toward the floor. Think about it yawning open. For most of us, our hip flexion is way better than our hip extension, meaning we're all pretty tight here. So even out the weight on your hands or forearms. Every exhale is a chance to just kind of suspend the front thigh a little bit more deeply. Neutralize your neck. You don't have to look forward. You can just kind of gaze down to keep the back of the neck long. And now we'll corkscrew the spine just to kind of get a little more juice, squeeze a little more juice out of it. So we'll come back to the hands if you're on the forearms. You're going to keep the right hand down. Left hand will hold the left knee. Push it out wide. You might uproot the inner left foot. That's perfectly fine. Corkscrew the spine to the left. Think about the tailbone. Think about the crown. Connect the dots. Make sure you have awareness up the spine. You know where all the vertebrae are. You know what your spine looks like right now. Don't sit down on the right shoulder. Extend through the crown of the head. Three or four more breaths. Use up those exhales. Go lean into them. Go to the very finish of the exhalation. That's where we get the most juice out of it. And after this one, you can take that following inhale, kind of come out of the big deep twist and walk yourself to the other long edge of your mat. So you're going to come into that same wide standing forward bend. propping on your hands, lining up your big toes, and then bowing the head toward the floor. You can rest on your arms if you have excess arm length, rest on the backs of your wrists. And go ahead and creep back around, lowering the right knee, taking the left knee onto the blanket as well. And again, sit back for child's pose, just quieting the brain. So the back bends really are stimulating, forward bends are quieting. And so it's good to just kind of place a few gentle, not the extreme ones, the gentle forward bends throughout a back bending practice, just to kind of bring a little bit more balance to the practice. We're going to start to come out of it. We're going to set up for a few variations on Ustrasana. So this is Camel Pose. You don't necessarily need a blanket, but feel free to use one. We're going to be kneeling, but it's not as intense as the lunging kneeling. So you just kind of decide if you need a blanket. We are going to work with our strap. So we want to work with an open strap. So if yours has a loop in it, you want to just kind of take that out. And the first version, we're going to just kind of imprint the rotation of the thighs, which is such a big piece of back bends. So once you've opened your strap, run it across your lower back. I have this very excessively long strap, but try to have even length. And then you're going to, once you run it across the lower back, without any twists in it, you're going to be putting it alongside the inner thighs and pass it back. You're not crossing the strap, so that's not a part of it. You're not crossing the strap. So I'll turn around and show you. I've run it across my back and I've kept the tails on their appropriate sides. I haven't crossed the strap. So that's how that should look. Okay, it feels kind of funny. So just like when you're standing in back bends, you want to keep your knees hip distance for the same reasons, because we want the broad sacral band. We want to have the thigh rotation happening. We want to have stability. Okay, so come in a little closer to the inner thighs. Like you're kind of almost hands together. You're kind of close. Again, it feels weird. Take the tailbone into the front body. And you're just going to redirect your thighs. So there is a way you can overdo this, which of course is not the idea. So what you're going to do is just kind of pull the hands apart so that our thighs, which want to do the other thing, the inner thighs want to rotate forward. You're just gently correcting that action. So you're not overdoing it and distorting the thighs in the other direction. You're just trying to prevent the inner thighs from rolling forward. So you're gently coaxing them back. Another way to think about this is you've drawn two vertical Sharpie lines on your thighs. And as you back bend, those Sharpie lines remain parallel. They're not becoming more separate. Okay. So sit up. Did anybody not get that? Just wave at the camera if that was not really understood. Okay, we'll move on then. Looks like we're good. Okay, so move this strap aside. Hopefully we can keep that thigh action going without that little assist now. Now we're going to work with block support. So take a block and put it outside each foot on its highest end. And if you're working with a blanket, it might be hard to balance those blocks, so just be careful that they don't tip over. But you're going to use the blocks for your fingertips. So you can lean back and touch them already. and they're close enough that you're able to keep your hips above your knees. So if you're leaning back and your hips are also coming back with you, move your blocks forward so that you can keep your hips above your knees. You should be on the fingertips on your blocks. Move your tailbone in. I'm going to turn sideways. You guys keep doing this so that you can see that the hips should remain above the knees. I'm not letting my hips come back with me because that's avoiding the pose. So pressing down through the hands, lift your breastbone, roll the inner thighs back. See if you can recall that strap experience. Parallel center thighs. Look slightly up. Good, and then lift yourself up and out of it. If it's comfortable for you, sit down on your heels. If not, you can sit down on a bolster that runs across your calf muscles or your heels. Just take a moment. I'm going to move my blanket aside just because if you want to come into the full pose, I find that the blanket sometimes trips me up or gets in my way. So if you think you have a chance of reaching your heels, then you're going to start with your toes tucked under, just because that brings the heels a little bit closer to you. And here, if you're feeling too much pressure on the knees and you've removed your blanket, you can make your mat 3-ply. So you're just doing a little trifold with your mat as a quick fix for the knees. So I just did that because my knees were killing me. I just ordered a new yoga mat and I'm using one of my not very favorite ones right now. That's irrelevant. So, okay, so we're gonna all clasp the hands. The toes are tucked under. Roll your shoulders back, and just like we did before, extend your arms fully and pull your heavy hands toward the floor. Shoot your breastbone away from your hands. And as you deepen, the hands are getting closer to the heels. At some point, you'll separate the hands, grab the heels, and restore the hips above the knees. Now that's not for everybody. You might be continuing to clasp here. Good. Okay. If you did go to the heels, bring your hands onto your hips. We're all going to inhale out of it, lead with your breastbone, and then go back and sit on your heels. And if that's not comfortable, sit forward in child's pose. And then you're going to set up a comfortable perch for yourself to sit, and we're going to do some arm work. And you'll want to have your strap also. So you might sit on 1 or 2 blankets. You might sit cross-legged. You might have another way that's preferred. So just make sure the base of your seated position is sustainable. Nothing's going to nag at you. So preparing the arms, the chest and shoulders is a big piece also of our back bends. So we're going to do 2 poses to prepare. We're going to do Gomukhasana and we're going to do Paschima Namaskarasana. So one is cow pose, one is reverse prayer. For cow pose, we're going to fix the arms. First, fix the lower arm, and second, fix the upper arm. And fix is the term used in the classical teaching. So we're going to fix the lower arm first of Gomukhasana. So we're going to take left arm, right hand is going to grab left upper arm. And then cross left forearm across your lower back. Yep. And just kind of pull on your left arm until you feel or sense that you're able to align the elbow below the shoulder. So for most of us, it starts wider. So you're just kind of tugging your arm to align under the shoulder. Wrap the back of the left hand around your side waist. So you just kind of take the back of the hand around your side waist. There you go. And then see if you can move the flesh. I'm going to let go of this arm. You don't need to though. Move the flesh of the left arm from the front of the shoulder to the back of the shoulder. So that's where we have to, and not manually. Sorry, I didn't explain that. Don't do what I'm doing. Try to move it with your mind. No, try to move the flesh like you're moving your shoulder from internal rotation to external. Okay? Yes. So then from there, the last piece is to keep your elbow in place and slide the left hand to touch the place between your shoulder blades. Left hand between the shoulder blades without the elbow poking out wide. So this is how we fix the bottom arm first. Then stack your right arm. Revolve the right arm so that your palm faces back. And then bending at the elbow, see if you can get your hands to come close together or connect. Once you've connected your hands, either by grabbing your shirt, using a strap, or hooking the hands together directly, take the elbow tips back and create resistance between the elbows, like a diagonal slash of energy. And keep working with the bottom arm rotation of the shoulder moving front to back. Okay, that's a lot. Okay, so same thing, other side, release your arms, do a little Shavasana arm to kind of undo all that work you just did. You might rotate your arms a little bit. Okay, and then we'll be working with fixing the bottom right arm next. So you'll cross that bottom right forearm across your lower back. Use your left free hand to just kind of gently pull the elbow to align more closely with the shoulder. Then wrap the right hand around your left side waist. Then see if you can work the flesh of that right shoulder from front to back. Because if we're complacent, it does the opposite. So a lot of yoga is resisting and moving into wise actions with resistance. So curling the shoulder back into external rotation. Then from there, see without the elbow widening, can you crawl the back of that right hand up to the area between your shoulder blades? Once you have all that, then you can raise the left arm. Revolve the arm so palm faces back. Hinging at the elbow, keeping that elbow above the shoulder. Connect your hands somehow. Strap, shirt directly. And then take the elbow tips back and resist the elbows apart. Lower elbow shooting toward the floor, upper elbow shooting toward the sky. Your shoulder blades have nowhere else to go but toward the chest. Good. Now release. Shavasana arms, maybe rotate a little bit. Good. Now fixing the top arm first. If you know you need a strap, you're going to start with a strap in hand. If you know you don't need a strap, you can do it hands-free. We'll be taking the left arm up first. Feel that strong rotation of the arm. You're winding the arm so your palm faces back. Your arm is as straight as can be, and your elbow is right on top of your shoulder. Then bend the elbow without it going wider. Touch your dorsal spine between your shoulder blades. Shoot the elbow up and press the shoulder blades in. Then take the right arm out, thumb down. Keep the upper arm level with the floor as you swing the arm. Take that hand up your back and hook the hands together or use your strap. Elbow tips float back. Shoulder blades coil in. Your skull doesn't float forward even though it wants to. Keep your face moving toward the back of the head. Your jaw is relaxed. Think about your right shoulder and what is the flesh doing? It wants to curl forward. Can you find some way to move the flesh of the right shoulder from the front shoulder to the back shoulder to restore external rotation there? This is a big piece of our finishing pose today. Good. Okay, lastly, other side. So releasing, extend your arms. Do what you need to do to refresh your arms. And now we'll do Gomukhasana, fixing the top arm first, right arm. So straight up, as strong of an internal rotation as you can get. Really exaggerate that and put your elbow in line with your shoulder. Then bend the arm, touch the area between your shoulder blades. Push there and take the elbow tip back. Left arm out, thumb down. Keep the upper arm level with the floor, swinging at the elbow. See if you can catch the hands, hook them together, or grab the strap, walk the hands together on the strap. Once you've made the connection, elbow tips back. a big, beautiful slash of diagonal energy from bottom elbow to top elbow. Your skull perfectly aligning above your spine. And think about left shoulder. Is it still curling forward? Correct that. Is your elbow widening? Try to pull it in toward midline. Same with the top shoulder and elbow. Good. And now release your arms. Do what you got to do. We're going to do reverse prayer. I like to turn around to teach this. We'll start with our hands together behind our backs, fingertips pointing down. And then take your fingertips onto your lower back. And then start to bring your small fingers, your pinkies, onto your lower back. And then start to work the hands up the spine. Notice what your shoulders are doing. If you can move the flesh of the shoulders from front to back, it should help you get your hands closer together, if not closed. If you're able to close your hands, great, you've done the pose. But for most of us, we're pretty tight and we have some work to do. So we're going to do a little stretch for the wrists. Release your arms. We'll all do it. Even if you're able to close your hand in Paschimottanasana, it's still uncomfortable for a lot of us. And a lot of us need forearm stretching and we don't even know it. So take your arms and cross your left elbow over your right. Sorry, don't do that. I think I taught that wrong last week too, or this week. Cross your wrists, not your elbows. Left wrist over right wrist. Then see if you can get your hands to interlock there. Okay, so you're crossing wrists and then you're clasping your hands. Good. Once you have that, keep the lock strong and take your hands up under your chin. Yeah, so now this is the true test. Can you extend your arms? At all. Go to your edge and just take a few breaths there. Not to the point where you're crying or screaming, just to the point where you can breathe and sustain and there's some sort of a small window of an opening in your body. And try to do so without collapsing your chest. Try to do so without curling your shoulders forward. Okay, now go ahead and release that. Switch your top crossing wrist to your right wrist. Interlock your fingers. Tuck your hands up under your chin. And then extend slowly. Find your edge. Take 5 good breaths there. And I promise when we revisit Paschimottanasana, the reverse prayer, at least you'll have a little bit more range to close the hands. A little. It won't be great, won't be perfect, but it'll be a little better. So go ahead and undo the forearm wrist stretch here. Go back to taking your hands behind your back, palms pressing together, fingertips find the tailbone lower back, then pinkies find the tailbone lower back. Then start to work the hands up the spine and then see about bringing the hands completely to a closed prayer position. Hopefully you found a little bit more depth. If not, it's still okay. Forgive yourself for whatever it is. Release your hands, shake out your wrists. And we'll do one more thing here. We're going to use the strap. And I want you to make a loop. This is all preparing us for the full wheel pose, which is considered the most elemental back bend. It's also one of the most difficult. We're not going to do the full wheel, but we are going to do everything right up to that pose. And if you want to press up into the pose, that's for you to discern, not me. So we're going to take the strap so that when you fit your arms inside the loop, your arms look pretty much parallel. And if they're slightly wider, that's better than slightly narrower, okay? If your wrists are slightly wider than your shoulders, that's better than the other, okay? Now, we're gonna try to take this loop and bring our arms overhead. And you want the loop to fit you right to the upper arm side of the elbow. This is a really good way to train your arms. Really good way to train your shoulder blades to come in too. So we start with a bigger loop, which we've all probably created. And then what we eventually want to do is start to drop the strap toward the shoulder line, behind the head more. You're getting your arms to start to slowly move back behind the head. And that might not be today. I'm just trying to show you that what you can do over time to kind of improve your openness. You can also make the strap narrower. So you have wiggle room here. Bigger strap is going to give you more room, and the strap being toward the wrist is going to give you more space as you develop this. But what I want you to do is turn your palms to face me, and keeping your elbows where they are, can you start to move your hands back? Yeah, this is creating the shape of the full wheel pose. So it's really kind of confining, but it's training the body to do what we want it to do when we come into that pose. So go ahead and extend your arms, take your strap away. Come onto your back. And we're going to do a bridge pose with that same loop, so don't undo it. The same loop you're going to fit on your wrists from your bridge pose, and your palms should be face up. So your strap is probably touching your butt or very close to your butt. So I'll say that again. The strap should go around your wrists, your palms are face up, and then you're going to wiggle a little bit to get the outer upper arms down and to help your chest lift shoulder blades into the chest. Walk your feet in so your heels come close to your sitting bones, and put your toes in front of your heels. Remember the action of your inner thighs. So in this orientation, you want to really direct your inner thighs toward the floor when you come up. So squeeze out the little space between your lower back and the floor. Press into your feet, especially your big toes, which will roll your inner thighs down. On an exhale, lift your hips. Do what you can to soften your butt. Step into your legs more, power up your thighs, roll your inner thighs down. Really use the resistance of your wrists into your strap to bring the shoulders down. There's that external rotation. Don't let your knees grow any wider than your hips. Even imagine you have to hold a block between your knees. And then go ahead and come down. Move your strap out of the way. Keep your legs and feet where they are unless you adjusted them, and then bring them back in where they were for bridge. Take your arms up in the sky and flex your wrists. So your palms are pushing toward the ceiling. And now keeping your elbows only as wide as your shoulders, bring your fingertips to the floor right above your shoulders. Yep. And now notice your elbows going super wide. Clamp them together. Clamp your elbows together. See if you can ground the full hand right up to the heels of the hands. This is where you're all prepped up now for full wheel. So if you do the full wheel pose, go ahead and come up into it. If you don't, just feel what happens when you exhale and push into your hands, push into your feet. Maybe just lift up your bridge hips. If you do full wheel, you come to the top of the head first, and then you come up. It's all the same actions, it's just we turn the dial up, and only you know when it's time to do that. So if you're still in bridge pose, full wheel, come down. I don't know who that was, but it was beautiful. I think it was Arlo, nice job. So come down, lift your feet from the floor and hug your thighs in. Reclining child. Maybe rolling the knees and massaging the back. Maybe widening the knees and releasing the inner thighs. Just let your body talk to you here. And then I'm going to have you set up for, we're going to do what's called a prone Shavasana, which means we're going to be on our stomachs. And this is a really wonderful pre-Shavasana pose after a back bending class. It's just a really nice way to neutralize lower back. So you're going to stack 1 or 2 blankets, and your pelvis will go on the height. And then you'll put your body the rest of the shape, except your head has to be on a cheek, because obviously we don't want to suffocate. You'll put your body in kind of a mirror image of Shavasana. So your feet are a little bit wider than your hips, your palms are down. Your pelvis has the height of the blankets, your lower back is getting a nice big kind of yawning open moment. And then let your other cheek have a turn, resting. And quietly set up for reclining Shavasana on your back, and feel free to use that blanket stack behind your knees. Take a few moments to adjust yourself, to really help your shoulders settle, to help your shoulder blades lift into the chest. Draw the flesh of the buttocks away from the upper body. Make sure your legs are open wider than your hips now. You're on the backs of your hands. And your head is aligning with the forehead and chin on the same height. Use a blanket if you need to elevate the forehead. And then really just turning the dial down as low as it goes. And feeling your passive body. What does it feel like when you're not willfully applying any effort physically? And it doesn't really happen all at once because we're so adult. We're so good at holding it together for all of our waking life. So just give yourself enough time to really release all effort from your face. Let the effort drain from the sheath, the outermost sheath of your body, your skin, and then start to go deeper underneath the skin, muscle, bone, joints, bone marrow, organs. Same applies to the breath. Just get out of the way of your breathing. Just imagine you're watching your breath. Your breath is like gentle waves lapping up onto shore, receding back. Each breath is unique. And the mastery of this pose is a sustained state of presence. Imagining the ripples of your mind becoming fewer and farther between, until the mind is like a reflective mirror, uninterrupted by thought waves. Thought waves that distort the present moment. Now just turning the dial up slightly to breathe deeper and to invite small movement. Bending your knees and elbows, carefully rolling to your side. Maybe there your eyes open, but not really because you have the desire to see anything. And then gently conserving your energy, coming up slowly. And just like you began, just take a few moments seated, really connecting with how you feel. And one of my teachers always closes, some of you know her, Jill, with may the benefits of this practice be shared with others. Namaste. All right, everyone, have a beautiful weekend. Enjoy the sun. And I hope to see you all again soon. Take care.